Hello, welcome back to Building Resilience in a Changing World. I'm Ben Umstead.
And I'm Martin Perkins.
This is Unit 2 that focuses on simplicity and building a life around one's core needs and values as an expression of resiliency and of simplicity. Now, if you heard Unit 2 and you said, wait, hold on a second, where's Unit 1? Your algorithm has sent you here for some reason. You can go ahead over to the channel and begin the workshop with Unit 1. For those of you returning, a reminder that all those great resources you can find down in the description. So if you haven't utilized those yet and you're still thinking about wanting to do that, go ahead and check them out. That's all there in the video's description. So simplicity, I mean, this word, particularly in our American culture in the US, simple-minded, things that are stupid, things that are so simple they have no depth, they're shallow. This is the way we often think about simple. Simplicity.
Can I interject something here, Ben? The other end of that, so it's either simplicity is either dismissed as like lacking depth, right?
Hmm.
Or from my perspective, even worse, it's turned into a marketing of products. Simple magazine, how to like make your life simpler. And it's all product based. So please continue.
Yeah, the minimalism there and everything, which opens up a whole nother can of worms, right?
It does.
So, what we're really bringing to the table here today with simplicity reflects the resiliency that we've presented as the core of the workshop. It reflects compassion as that first three treasure we offered. It's all a part of your practice in presence. When I'm feeling in and being present with simplicity, what that means is what we talked about at the end of Unit 1, the whisper of your soul. It's recognizing that, the whisper of your soul, your intuition, that gut instinct. There are different words that we can use for this, but soul has such a vibrant and noble, like you noted, thing where we all are ourselves in this way. What is the easiest way? And I don't mean easy as in easy and hard, but as in ease, a lack of tension. What is the easiest way to express our truth, to not get in our own way? And this is at the core of what simplicity is. In this way, it's not necessary to make simplicity like a goal. It's already there if you're practicing, if you're in presence, if you're breathing into the moment. Breath sweeps mind. That's something that we often talk about, in the podcast and in your year-long courses that you offer, Martin. That's simplicity. It's taking a pause. It's taking the moment as it is and feeling those linkages, right? Through the stillness and the accompanying of letting go of the patterns, the stories that we can grab onto and say, well, that defines us. The simplicity is that letting go into our depths. It is that listening to the whisper. It is breathing. And there's, ironically enough, there can be a lot more to it. There can be so many ways to emphasize what simplicity is. And I don't want to get lost in the weeds with this. It is being simple when one honors who they are. It is being simple when one sits with that discomfort. It is being simple when one expresses through soul journaling, through painting, through drawing, through gardening. These are simple, nourishing acts, and that's what I would emphasize. Simplicity equals an honoring of oneself, and there's nourishment in making that choice. How you engage with yourself, how you are in the moment, offers a great abundance.
And to that end, I want to add an additional piece that I think is crucial to folks tuning in. You beautifully kind of illuminated what simplicity looks like when we have some level of spaciousness to our
Mm,
lives. For a lot of people, during a significant portions of their day, they don't perceive that they have that available to them. The pace of their lives, as a result of their work or their family life, they don't perceive that spaciousness
mm,
to what to build what we consider crucial elements of creating ease or pauses in our lives. And to that end, what I would suggest is if you truly aren't able to build pauses, spaciousness into your life so that you can access what Ben was sharing, then the most important piece that you can give to yourself is simply to deal with what's right in front of you. In other words, the greatest act of simplicity is to be present to the moment and nothing else. It is, in truth, the most extraordinary element that we can give to ourselves in the form of what the Tao in ancient Taoism it was referred to as Wu Wei, okay?
mm,
And Wu Wei was often described as being, it was often misinterpreted. It was often called non-action or non-interference. But the truth is that Wu Wei is about being at ease with what the moment is bringing you, right? It's giving yourself permission to be, to have a state of clarity and ease around what is happening right here, right now, right? Uh,
mm,
there's this lovely image that we use in Chinese medicine, and it's connected to two meridians, the liver and the gallbladder. Yes, they're organs, but they're also meridians or lines of energy, right? And they correspond, interestingly enough, to the time we're in right now as we record this course. We're in early spring. Today is March 31st. It's going to be in the mid to high 70s outside here in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, right? And spring is clearly rising around us, right? There's that tension of life springing forward, right? Literally springing forward. You know, I'm looking outside, the trees are turning green, lots of flowers, in the forest here, because there's a form of forest flower called ephemerals.
mm,
And ephemerals come out only because the trees haven't leafed over yet. And so the light can come through the forest and provide the light necessary for these early spring flowers to do their thing. And right now, back in my forest, my woods, it's full of what they call spring beauties. These pink and purple flowers just everywhere, rising out of the leafy surface of the forest floor, right? So there's this rising energy, and it very much corresponds to the liver and the gallbladder. So the liver's role is the big picture energetically, right? So we could say that in context, the liver's job is a bit like an eagle flying high above, scoping out what's coming, what's all around us, right? And from that perspective, high above, we can see an awful lot, but we don't always have the sense of what's on the ground, right? And then down below at the surface, we could say that that eagle is tethered energetically and physiologically to the gallbladder, or for our example, the lion. So this eagle and this lion are tethered. This liver and this gallbladder are tethered in this rising energy we call spring. And one's about clarity, and the other one is about kind of boots on the ground. How do we navigate the actual landscape of what's going on? The rocks, the trees, the plants, all the trees, the other living beings. How do we navigate all that? How do we handle that with grace and with ease? And Wu Wei speaks to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're in balance, when we're present, when we can access a level of ease, and to some degree, we're able to look at the world through a lens of simplicity and through the lens of the values that truly matter to us, then that line on the ground can move with grace and move with ease in communication with the larger vision that's coming from the eagle, but can move with the kind of fluidity that's needed for us to deal with what often feels like the hustle and the bustle. And that's what's meant by the phrase Wu Wei. How do we move through the world with grace and ease and a depth of consideration, because we can see the whole picture, right? And at the end of the day, yes, we have the eagle above and we have the lion below. But what's guiding that vision are, in essence, what do we hold as valuable? What truly matters? Or in the context of our workshop today, what are our values? And I'll give you an example of what I mean of that. It's a piece of writing that I'm going to quote here from my book, Language of the Soul, A Path of Simplicity. And in this quote, it really deeply speaks of the interplay between my sense of values, what matters to me, and the role of simplicity. And it's titled The Whisper of Truth. Being receptive to what rests before us through gratitude, forgiveness, and trust is the secret shortcut to a meaningful life. So often, the framing to a purpose-driven life is set around overcoming obstacles, meeting challenges, and striving for success. While these aspects of life may appear before us, the deep and resonant truths that are the actual vehicles for sustained inner peace and connection to purpose lie in the simplicity of being thankful, forgiving, and trusting of ourselves and the world around us. Now, I would suggest that there's not many people out there that would suggest that the values of the virtues of forgiveness, gratitude, and trust aren't important. But that doesn't mean that at any given moment there are they need be the guiding light of the moment.
Mm.
For some of us at varying moments, other virtues or values might carry precedence. My work with my students and my work with you today is to encourage you to access what's really driving it. What's driving the bus? Are my values driving the bus? And as a result, making life in essence pretty simple? Or is something, if I put something in the way,
Those obstacles.
if I put those obstacles in the way because I'm not clear in myself about what really matters.
Mm.
And it's no small thing to be clear in this hustling and bustling world. But we build resilience by getting clear in ourselves about what really matters, right? Now, somebody might say to me, well, it's really simple. For me, it's family. And I would say, okay, great. However, I would encourage that person who's broken it down to a single word. I'm not saying don't bring simplicity. I'm asking you to bring depth to the conversation. Because if you've been able to reduce it down to one word, it's possible you've skipped some steps. You've not necessarily given yourself permission to recognize where are my edges around being a
Hmm.
family, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not saying family isn't an extraordinary and important institution of human life. Of course it is, right? My kids mean everything to me. That said, how I practice in the world in relation to them is where where the rubber meets the road for me, right? So, yes, for the sake of whom? For the sake of my family. But that's not necessarily the value. What's the underlying values? The virtues that you want to bring in practice in connection your with your family members, with your community, with your coworkers, right? What what are the pieces here that you say you want to dig into? What are my core needs and values, right? And for each of us, the truth is it could be different in different moments, in different situations. Accessing and having a practice in accessing one's wisdom gives us the ability to decide like what really matters, right? I could give some personal examples, but I kind of want to kind of flip this back to you, Ben, and kind of get what your sense of what I'm sharing and your personal take on it.
Well, there's this sense there that we often overcomplicate values by reducing them down to a single word. There is this strange, delicious irony that we're playing with talking about values and simplicity, right? but values as an expression of resiliency, to be flexible, like you noted, to be in the moment, whatever the situation, whoever you're with, you're going to have different values with different people in your life because you're meeting them through certain things. I know that I can speak to core values in my life around creative expression, playfulness, curiosity. These are things that I also would call my edges as well.
Right.
Now, those values show up differently depending on who I'm with. When I'm with friends who are also filmmakers, come from a background of cinema, of movies, our values are very much in alignment with the importance of craft and form and function and thematics of the art form as a way to get people to crack open their hearts again and again, right? That value is not there in that same way. It does not show up in that same way when I'm with my partner or a family member
Right.
because the situation is different. The feelings are different. The interests are different. The points of connection are
Beautifully
different.
said. The points of connection. What is the nature of those points of connection? What is the nature of the connection?
Hmm. So I think that's really important to really remember when we are really diving deep and, maybe eventually that word family encompasses the depths. But we got to dive deep in there. And that is where that resiliency is. That is where a farther exploration and dance and just again, I think this is something that's really important to emphasize again and again in the workshop. These edges where you're showing up to challenges, where things might not feel simple, where things might feel inflexible, that is exactly where you should be. Those edges, you know, may not be so hard as they feel. There's a softness there. And that speaks to the siren call that you noted in part one, in unit one. The siren call of the soul, and the soul then really yourself, remember, because it's not some separate thing. We use this word and it's not, it's you. It's you saying, well, what are my values? And hearing that whisper of wisdom and diving in. That's not only the simplest thing you can do, but that is where your values become abundant. Yeah, they are flexible, they're resilient, but I turn back to that notion of abundant. Your values become life itself and not a compartmentalization of life.
Right. And to that end, where I'd like to take our conversation now is into our first practice. And our first practice is going to be a practice in meditation. And having taken unit one, you're aware of how I'm encouraging you to practice meditation. And I also want to offer you a challenge. I want to offer you the challenge of practicing for the next 30 days, practicing meditation each morning for 5 to 10, 15 minutes before you start into your day. Okay? Give yourself permission to arise, either seated, laying down, whatever works for you. And for the next 30 days, practice 5 to 15 minutes of meditation. Once you achieve that, I'm going to offer you another challenge, which is then to see whether or not you could add a second meditation somewhere in the middle portion of the day, somewhere between 12 and 5, where you again take another 5, 10, 15 minutes and practice. I am an advocate of practicing more frequently through the day to bring us back to the present carries more value than a single long meditation in the morning. I've taught this for years this way. My students value this because it's a way to keep bringing them back to the moment. Okay? So, what I want to encourage you to do now is take 5 to 15 minutes to meditate as I've taught in Unit 1. And when you're ready, come back for the next practice in the workshop. Welcome back from your meditation. And the next practice I'd like to encourage you to enter into is soul journaling. And the prompt for this particular soul journaling practice is write into, through the lens of your wisdom, about your relationship to forgiveness, gratitude, and trust. My perspective on those three is that they are the three legs of a stool that allow us to live a more loving life. My offer to you is explore what that means for yourself. Which one has edges? Which one has ease? Give yourself, let the pen write you rather than kind of forcing yourself into a kind of conversation in the journaling that's less about your wisdom and more about maybe negative thoughts you have about it. Give yourself permission to go right into the wisdom and trust that you have that within yourself. All right? Take about 15 minutes or however long you need. And when you're ready, come back and we'll finish things up. Welcome back from your journaling session. One of the resources that I'd like to share with you is an in-depth conversation that Ben and I had through our podcast, in which we discuss in depth the role of soul journaling in our lives, and its potency as a healing and growth tool. It's titled Soul Journaling, and it was published on December 31st of 2024. So I encourage you to take a listen. And as well, if you've accessed this course through YouTube, it's right there on the YouTube page the same page that you've accessed this course. Ben?
So you're going to get that episode over there and you'll find all the other episodes of the podcast. But if you're really finding this workshop to be, nourishing, like I noted earlier, as a part of simplicity, do consider going over to martinperkins.com where all the healing and growth modalities, the book, the audio book, and the year-long course are located in terms of just access and information about all of that. The big thing for us today is yes, you can, like and subscribe. But once again, if you're coming back and joining us for part two, please again consider sharing this workshop with someone directly. That is the greatest gift that you can give us. Just that word of mouth. It's so sincere. It's so heartfelt. That's the heart cracking open again and again. Both Martin and I thank you for that. And we'll see you back here for unit 3 of building resilience. That's going to focus on humility as the third treasure, if you want to do it in a chronological way, as well as the 4 forms of rest. Resting. This is something that we think we're only doing, when we lie down and go to sleep. There are so many ways that we can be present to rest, and we're going to explore that in relation to humility as well. So we look forward to stepping into that space with you in Unit 3 of Building Resilience.